at one point I just remember seeing like a giant wall, and on the wall was many different religious symbols. Like I remember seeing the Ganesh Hindu symbol, I remember seeing the Buddha symbol and Jewish symbol. I just seen all these different symbols, and they were all together on the one wall, and it was beautiful colors, and it was really overwhelming. I was almost crying because it was so beautiful. And then I remember when I looked over the wall, I saw a giant head in space. It was like a luminous colors, like holographic kind of luminous colors, and it was like it was in space and just a giant head, and it was looking down at me smiling. And the more I looked at it, I could see the definition of my face. It was like my beard, and it was smiling, and I was like only for a few seconds. And I remember going wow, and I was like tears coming from my eyes, and I was just like in awe. And then the next thing I remember, I was being carried away from the room by shamans, because I must have really transcended, because my body wasn't doing what I thought I was doing. I must have been screaming or crying or shaking, or I don't know what I was doing. But they took me outside, and in that moment, the way I felt was like, this is me. I saw a higher version of myself.
Okay, so this is Mike Sigula from truththeory.com, and this is Truth Theory Podcast episode 7, and my guest today is Kash Khan from educateinspirechange.org. Educate Inspire Change is a digital media brand with more than 3 million followers on Facebook. Their mission is to encourage people to expand their consciousness and to inspire people to reach for their dreams. Kash is also the host of Educate Inspire Change podcast, where he interviews world-renowned guests sharing unique perspectives on a broad range of topics, including personal growth, self-actualization, mental health, mindfulness, spiritual evolution, plant medicine, philosophy, and more. So, Kash, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for a while, and I felt like let's have a chat and discussion, because we kind of run, similar brands in a way, and we also have similar goals to just help people to see the bigger picture, to, be better versions of themselves. We both kind of reach millions of people, and I think we face similar challenges, so I felt like let's see what's your perspective on what's happening in the world currently, what's going on with censorship, with a bunch of other things. And maybe we can just start by, you could give us a little bit of background, how you started, what was your process of awakening like, why you decided to create Educate to Inspire Change.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So Educate Inspire Change started like 8 years ago, simply as a Facebook page, and it came from a series of events had to take place for me to be ready to get the motivation to start the page. So during my 20s, I was very much in and out of jobs. I didn't really know what my purpose or my calling was. I spent a lot of time doing what many people do during their 20s, partying, spending time with the wrong crowd, and I entered into a relationship with a girl, and we had a child together. But unfortunately, the relationship didn't last, and I wasn't able to see the child. So this for me sent me into a little bit of depression, and it took me maybe 3 or 4 years of battling in the court system in the UK, which are very old-fashioned court systems, so they're not very good. They're not very favourable for fathers at the moment. So once I was able to see my son, it changed my outlook on life, and it changed the way I see myself, and I really felt that I needed to make a change. And so I started to look at myself through his eyes, And I also knew that this court system wasn't going to be very easy for me, and it was going to take many, many years to really have a strong relationship with him. So I thought, what can I do in the meantime? It's almost like a form of therapy, So I remember my lawyer told me it's a good idea to write letters to him. But instead of writing letters to him that he's never going to read, I thought I want to do something that makes a difference now. So I went online and made this page, Educate, Inspire, Change, and I wanted to share my views on the world, to share my beliefs for what the world needs more of online, in the hope that one day my son will see this and understand his father better, understand what I stand for, And it became a bit of an obsession for me in the first 2 or 3 years. As you know, it's a very difficult kind of industry to get into and to make money from. So the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't have a big following. I didn't even know how to monetize my platform. I just literally was sharing content for the sheer passion of sharing the truth. And I became passionate about lots of topics. I started to become aware about different wars, like the war in Iraq, the war in Palestine, the corruption in American politics, the food industry, GMO, and I started to understand all this stuff, spirituality, quantum physics, and it really blew my mind open. And it started to make me really understand life better. It made me reevaluate my own beliefs. So I was raised a Muslim, for example, and creating this page made me question my own beliefs, and it made me become much more of a spiritual person and much more understanding for all religions and all people, So it set me in this journey down this rabbit hole, and obviously I've evolved as the business has evolved. So over the last 6-7 years, I've really changed my diet. Like I became pescatarian, vegetarian. I've started to become more into meditation, yoga, stepped away from religion, just done more work with psychedelics and plant medicines. And now the page, I'm focusing less on politics, less on war, less on all this stuff. And I'm focusing much more on what changes we can make now in ourselves, like self-healing. So like, what can you do today to make the world a better place? Because lots of people were giving me some feedback. They were telling me that all the messages I'm sharing are very good, but they couldn't see a way out. They couldn't see how they could make the world a better place, because to change the political system, it's going to take you lots of hard work, many years, and it might not even work. But what you can change is you can change your own self right now, and you can make your life better. So I like to focus on these topics now. This is kind of where I am now. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing podcasts of my own, why I'm doing more videos, documentaries, because I want to really encourage people to be the change they want to see. Instead of trying to change the world, just change yourself, and that's enough.
Yeah, and so how can we change ourselves? Like, what do you think everyone can do? Because obviously, and what it means for you to be spiritual? Because I guess it's kind of, I'm a spiritual person. Someone, it's a cliche, but what it means, really.
I think spirituality is a very personal thing. It can be different for everybody. But I think spiritual people, they have a few things in common where they are all encompassing. So they don't want to pass judgment on others, and we don't enforce our views on others as well. So you can be whatever you want to be as long as you're not harming anybody. I accept you, Whereas the difference with dogma or religion is it confines you to a set of rules and laws that you must abide in order to achieve key to heaven, or whatever you want to call it. Whereas spirituality just gives you the freedom to choose your own path, as long as you're not harming others, and it also it's a non-judgmental path, And I think for me, since I became spiritual, I've become a better person as well, because less judgment. I'm thinking more about animals. I'm thinking more about the food I'm eating. Like when I was raised as a Muslim, for example, I'll give you a good example. My family wanted me to marry another Muslim person. They also wanted to choose my diet for me, so I could eat meat, and I had to eat halal meat, and I had to live in a certain way. Like I imagine they would have not been happy if I was gay, They wouldn't have accepted me, So there's lots of walls around me that I had to live by, and I was always in fear of punishment. I was always in fear of, if I do this, I'm going to go to hell. So it's almost a form of mental abuse as well, So spirituality, it gave me a feeling of liberation. Like I felt liberated, like I can be what I want, and I can feel how I want to feel without shame or judgment. So this was a big difference for me between spirituality and religion, and I feel like since I've had this awakening, my children have benefited, because I don't raise them the way I was raised. I raise them to be free, and I want them to question everything for themselves, and I want them to even question me. I want them to just become their own people. And this is what the key to the future of society is for me, is creating children that are taught to question everything and to think for themselves critically. Because at the moment we're doing the opposite. At the moment we're forcing our old-fashioned traditions and old-fashioned views on children, and we're telling them that we know the way and they must follow us. But we do not know the way, because we've only been following broken traditions and broken ways and broken systems. And you can see this today with the prison systems, the education system, the health systems, the political systems. They're all failing all around us. There's still wars everywhere. There's still poverty in Africa. There are still people dying of diseases. There's still, child trafficking happening at a huge rate. So clearly something is wrong, and I think it stems from this lack of education at the children's level. So I feel quite passionate about this, that we need to fundamentally change our values and our beliefs and how we raise our children.
Yeah, I think this is extremely important, because our parents often want us to be the version that they want us to become, but their views are often outdated, or they went through some kind of indoctrination through religion or education system, or they think, what's good for them, it's going to be good for you, but you are a different person and you might have completely different interests and gifts, and you need to be able to discover these things yourself. So I can see it, like my dad wants me to become this kind of person that he is, but I have my own perception and goals, and he doesn't understand some of my goals, and I don't understand some of his perceptions. So I totally agree. I think if I'm gonna have children in the future, I definitely would like them to discover what's good for them, what they want to be doing themselves. And sad to see that we still have places on the planet where, for example, you have arranged marriages where your family chooses someone you're supposed to love, where love should be all about emotions and feelings you have towards someone, and not some arrangement that is coming from a culture that they just do it because everyone's been doing it for centuries, so they think this is the way things should be done. But there's a lot of these things. And if I can add something to what you said about spirituality, like this is an interesting thing about judgment, because I have a lot of problems with judging people, and I've been raised this way, and it's also part of my family. But I think another thing that I consider to be important, and maybe partially a definition of spirituality, is that you kind of want to walk your talk, and if you have intentions or ideas, and you kind of want to match that with who you are, so let's say, I don't know, let's say, for example, you have a wife and you watch pornography, and she might not be happy about it. So this is like, you want to be an authentic person and not kind of have one side, or this persona outside this mask, and be someone else inside. So I think the more we are aligned inside, then more kind of we become spiritual. That's that's kind of my path, because I've been also fighting with a lot of my personal issues, my instincts, my addictions, my own kind of negative parts or shadow sides that I've been trying to fix or trying to improve over the years. And it's like never ending battle. They say that's like the hardest thing is like the battle inside yourself, But you also mentioned psychedelics, and I wanted to hear your experiences. I've been looking at some of your journeys. I know you went to Costa Rica a couple of times, and it's interesting. I've been hearing you saying something that psychedelics helped you to see the path, and gave you the confidence, maybe, to put yourself out there, because almost at the same time I started doing the same, but it came from a different kind of realization. It didn't really come from like getting information on a psychedelic journey. It was just like I felt like this is the time, the world is really going crazy, and I've been kind of afraid to put myself out for a long time. I've been hiding behind my website, and in a similar way I think you've been doing the same thing, and we kind of coming out now when it's probably the world needs to see more people like us. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of these experiences.
Sure. Yeah, so like I was obviously through our platforms, I was aware of DMT and ayahuasca for quite a few years. I had been watching documentaries and reading books and articles from all these famous people like Terence McKenna. Even Joe Rogan used to talk about it a lot in his podcast. So I was very aware of it, but I never had any experience myself, and I never expected to feel the calling to try. But one day, a place in Costa Rica actually emailed me. I think maybe you know them as well. I'm sure I saw one of your colleagues there at some point, Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. So they invited me to come to their retreat, but initially, like, because I had no understanding of what ayahuasca or any psychedelics were, I said no, thank you. But it planted a seed in my head where it made me intrigued to understand more. What do they do, and what's the purpose of ayahuasca? What healing properties does it have? And I really went down a rabbit hole, and I spent many months, really learning about it. And I realized there were some problems in my own life that maybe I was hiding from. I wasn't willing to face up to. Like, I would maybe drink too often. I would maybe sometimes deal with stressful situations with alcohol or cigarettes or drugs or gambling, whatever it was. This is my way of coping mechanism. So, and also my relationship was suffering as well. And there was many areas of my life that I realized needed a lot of improvement with. So I thought to myself, maybe there's something here that I could do, and I saw the potential in this plant could help me. So I replied maybe 1 year later to Rhythmia, asking them, is the offer still open? And I'm really grateful that they said yes. And then around 5 months later, I took the journey to go there, and you can read as many books and watch as many videos as you want. Nothing will prepare you for the actual experience itself. Nothing can. Even me talking about it for hours, I can't prepare you. It's impossible, because the kind of experience you have is so out of this realm, out of this world. It's that almost like you have other senses that are for the first time woken up, and you can't put them into words, like you can almost like feel and taste and hear colors and sounds, like define the experience you have. And time doesn't exist in this realm, so time is very different to the way we experience it here as well. So it's very overwhelming to the body, to the senses, the mind, everything. But like my first experience was just extremely profound, extremely overwhelming, and it made me realize that something is there much bigger, much more intelligent, much more deeper than us, and it's here to teach us and show us the way. And this was like my takeaway from the first experience I had, and it really opened my mind. And what I noticed was it made me become much more of a thoughtful person. I became much more mindful of how I spoke. I wouldn't lose my temper so quickly. I was much more forgiving to others. I just became an overall kinder person. And this plant really got me interested. So some people, when they do psychedelics, they can maybe do it once or twice. They can have a really profound experience, and they will never feel the need to try it again. But other people, their nature is maybe more curious, more inquisitive, and when they open the door to this world, they want to really go deeper and understand and unlock more. And that's what I felt happened to me. I was really, really curious about this. I always have been a curious person by nature, and this was a whole new world to me, a whole new dimension that opened up, and I felt like there's a lot of answers here to the world's problems, and even to a personal problem. So I decided to return, and the second time I returned, I wanted to take a cameraman with me to document my journey. And the second time, I really felt I wanted to go to find more about my purpose. I wanted to understand why am I here, find my purpose, so I could really share whatever I discovered with the world. And it was during one night doing ayahuasca when I had a really profound experience. I felt like I met my higher self, and I was really in awe of, I was asking to see God. I was asking to have my consciousness raised. I wanted to see whatever higher power was there. And when I got to see him, it was almost like it was me looking back at me. It was really surreal.
So can you tell me what happened exactly? Because I'm interested in this concept of higher self. And sometimes in mind appear exactly as you, looks like you, or older version of you, or more mature or something like that.
Sure, I'll go into more detail. So basically, I remember this night vividly because I wrote in the book, when you do ayahuasca, they say come into the ceremony with some kind of intention. Like, what do you want to heal today? Do you want to heal trauma, or do you want to, explore? What do you want to do? So I wrote on the paper, please raise my consciousness so that I can understand and better, why I'm here, and communicate with more clarity and strength. So I kept saying to the medicine, raise my consciousness. I want to speak to God, or I want to understand. And every time I felt like in my mind I was going higher, I was going deeper into this medicine, and the visuals were getting very strong. But every so often it would say no, you were not ready, and I would need to puke. So puking is a big part of ayahuasca, where you have lots of stored emotions and baggage and traumas that are stored in your body. So for example, when I'm a child, and for example my father is beating me as a child, in my mind I want to fight back and I want to shout and scream or cry, but instead I'm not reacting. I'm having to keep it in, like a child. And that emotion, it goes somewhere in your body. And then as you grow older, this emotion has to come out some way. And often it comes out in very bad ways, like alcohol or drugs or eating too much, or, or you can have diabetes or disease, whatever it means. All these emotions, they store up every day, over years and years. And this is what ayahuasca does. It comes to these realities. It makes you face to face with your trauma. So it takes you back to all these crazy moments, and it makes you feel, wow, I can't keep this anymore. I need to release it. I need to accept what happened. I need to forgive everybody. And it makes you puke it out. It's really profound. So this kept happening to me maybe 5 or 6 times over maybe 2 or 3 hours. I was really being violently sick into the bucket. And the more sick I was, the lighter I felt, and the more higher I could go. And then it got to a stage where I was like literally sitting on my bed like this, like it felt very profound to me. Maybe I looked different to other people, but in my head, I felt like I was, flying high. And at one point, I just remember seeing like a giant wall, and on the wall was many different religious symbols. Like I remember seeing the Ganesh Hindu symbol. I remember seeing the Buddha symbol and Jewish symbol. I just seen all these different symbols, and they were all together on the one wall, and it was beautiful colors, and it was really overwhelming. I was almost crying because it was so beautiful. And then I remember when I looked over the wall, I saw a giant head in space. It was like a luminous colors, like holographic kind of luminous colors. And it was like it was in space and just a giant head, and it was looking down at me, smiling. And the more I looked at it, I could see the definition of my face. It was like my beard, and it was smiling, and I was like only for a few seconds. And I remember going, wow. And I was like tears coming from my eyes, and I was just like in awe. And then the next thing I remember, I was being carried away from the room by shamans, because I must have really transcended, because my body wasn't doing what I thought I was doing. I must have been screaming or crying or shaking, or I don't know what I was doing. But they took me outside, and in that moment, the way I felt was like, this is me. I saw a higher version of myself. I thought I can do anything. Like if someone says to me, make a video or be a guest or speak, how can I say no? I've just seen myself and all this beauty and all this magnificence. Like this is my true essence. I need to do this guy justice. I need to be my true self, So the next day when I'm thinking about, my business, and I need to make videos, I need to do documentaries, I'm speaking from the heart. Like the way I'm speaking to you just now, it's not rehearsed. It's just totally from the heart, talking about experience and talking about passion. So I couldn't do this 2 years ago or 1 year ago, because I would need to think about what I would be living in my head. I'd be having anxiety. Am I giving the right answer? Am I talking too fast? Do I sound good? Do I sound intelligent? Now I don't care. Now all I care about is speaking my truth and sharing my message, and hopefully inspiring 1 or 2 people. That's all I want to do, So this gave me that overwhelming experience of, that confidence that there's a higher version of me out there that's guiding me. And when you have the experience, it's just a feeling. You can't put it into words, So it puts feelings in you. Like, for example, when I look at my children, I know I love them dearly, but there's no science, there's no physical evidence I can provide to anybody. But nobody would question the love. So when I have this experience with my higher self, I love myself so much now, but I can't explain it to anybody. You know what I mean? I just saw myself, and it's like a feeling inside me that's very pure. And also, when you go through this journey, it's hard work. So it's like the feeling of, imagine climbing Mount Everest, the feeling of accomplishment, and how proud you would feel. I felt the same feeling coming through ayahuasca. Like I felt like I had really healed my ancestor, I'd healed myself, healed my children. I had puked for hours and days, and it was really painful, scary, hard work. But I went through it, and I felt good after it. It was really full of gratitude and love, and I took that gratitude and love into my day-to-day life as well. So even small tasks I'm doing, like, putting my children to bed at night, going for a walk, doing yoga, doing meditation, eating food. I'm treating all these things like with much more attention to detail, and I'm doing them much more mindfully, and I'm being much more grateful for everything every day. And it's a really profound way to live, And I mean, everything becomes, like, even flowers look better, music sounds better, food tastes better, just because something's unlocked in me. And I feel like this is what I needed, because there were some major blocks in me that needed unlocked. So like you said, some people don't need psychedelics. Some people can just find the power in themselves. Other people maybe have some major blockages, whether it's trauma or addiction or abuse, whatever it might be. And sometimes those blockages maybe need a little bit of a push or something to really get them out of the system. And I feel like that's what happened to me.
And did you encounter any negative, side effects or anything, bad trips or anything like that? Because I think it's important to remind people, there's so much hype now around psychedelics as these amazing tools, but I had some really, really dark, crazy experiences that ended up, with some severe consequences, and I've seen
Mm-hmm.
that happening around me as well. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important people need to understand that these are very powerful tools, and it's not always works perfectly, for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Did you have
Yeah.
anything that you could
Um,
consider a negative or bad trip?
I mean, so in my experience, I definitely had very traumatic nights that were very painful to go through, and they were traumatizing, confusing. It left me in a state of confusion. But I think at the end result, I was able to heal from them and learn from them. But I also saw people around me go through some bad things, and I understand very much the dark side of plant medicine. There's a dark side to everything. It doesn't matter. You can have money and you can use it for bad or you can use it for good. Like everything, there's polarity in everything, you know. So there's a very dark side to ayahuasca. What I would say, there's two things I want to touch on here. So there are very painful things to go through with ayahuasca that can be traumatic, but sometimes that can be where the healing is. Sometimes you need to go through those traumatic, painful experiences in order to heal. But as being I suppose it's hard to define what's good for you and what's not good for you, because there's people I've heard having, they can feel possessed, they can go home and they can feel worse, they can become more depressed, they can become more addicted to drugs or alcohol. I understand there's a dark side to it, and I think it all comes down to how careful are you when it comes to choosing the place you do medicine? How much attention are the shamans or people around you putting into you? How much care are they paying to the medicine, into your environment, to the setting? Are you eating well? Are you taking it all as your body? Are you you make sure you're not on antidepressants, you're not on drugs, you're not on alcohol, you're eating healthy, you're eating good. And also, are you in a good state of mind to deal with this? Because some people, maybe they are in a bad state of mind already and they're coming into this with a negative frame of mind and they're going to have a very bad time. So I think all these things need to be taken into account. Like, where are you in your life? Are you truly ready? Have you sought medical advice? Have you sought all the proper relevant advice? And have you chosen the best retreat? And have you chosen the best medicine? So there's lots of things people need to do to be very carefully choose where they want to go and how they want to do the medicine, because it could be very dangerous, like you say. I think for me, I put in lots of preparation. I think I was in a good place. So even when I did have a bad experience, I had the support around me that helped me to navigate and helped me to understand and helped me to integrate what happened to me. Some people maybe wouldn't have that support and maybe wouldn't have that, be lucky enough to be in a luxury retreat in Costa Rica with many shamans and doctors and psychologists to help guide and support you and hold space for you. I did have that, so I'm lucky. And also when I came home, I had a loving family around me to support me as well. Some people, they do the medicine and maybe they're going home to an abusive relationship or a job that they hate and they don't know how to handle this change of environment. Because one thing the medicine does, it makes you very vulnerable. It makes you you're vibrating at a very high frequency. So things that can happen to you can maybe feel much more sensitive, So I understand it's a very dangerous substance and it has to be handled with care. So that's the best advice I could give to anybody. But like if you're in an abusive relationship, if you have a bad job, be careful, because when you do the medicine, it's going to really it's going to shine a light on the bad things in your life and it's going to amplify them. So for example, if you're in a bad relationship, if your husband is beating you and you do ayahuasca, it's going to really make this feel much more and you need to leave, and it's going to create a lot of friction, you know what I mean? And you're going to have to leave and maybe you're going to be a victim of more violence, who knows? So you have to be very careful what circumstance you're in. Try to make sure you have people around you who can support you no matter what happens.
And I think I heard you saying something that you also tried ibogaine, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like?
Yes.
Your experience?
So iboga was very, very different to ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is like a transcendent experience. If you feel like you leave your body and you go somewhere else, like you travel to a different dimension, and it's very beautiful, it's very loving, although there are hard parts to it, but it's like the energy you feel, it's very mystical, magical, and you encounter different beings, you travel to different dimensions. With iboga, it's different. With iboga, you stay right there where you are on the floor, and the visions come to you. So it's like you're alone in a dark room is the best way to describe it. Like we have a blindfold on. That's what they gave to us to help us with the visions. They give you a blindfold so you feel in a dark room. And it's almost like a TV comes on. And the visions you have are very clear and you're just alone with your visions. It's not like you feel like you're on the floor. You can still be very conscious of it's very grounding medicine, and it's a very powerful medicine. It's very matter of fact. Like with ayahuasca, you have to try to understand. It's like riddles. You have to interpret the visions, interpret with iboga, it's just like very black and white. this is you. You're going to fix it, or you're not going to fix it. You're a drug addict. You have disease. Whatever it means, and it really forces you to face, whatever you need to face. And the thing with iboga, for me, everyone's experience is different, obviously. So I can only talk from my own experience. But I think for me, it was very much about clearing out my psyche, rewiring my brain, and also healing my body. I think I had some physical issues because I would smoke a lot, and I have asthma as well, and maybe my lungs were very weak and I didn't know, or you know what I mean. So I felt like something was happening to my lungs during my experience. And even one of the people saw me. They said to me, one of the facilitator said, I could see you when you were puking. It wasn't normal puke. It was like a thick black balls coming out, and they were coming from the bottom of your stomach, like really thick. It was like, and she goes, it felt like your lungs, it's like the black from your lungs was coming out. That's what I felt like, So maybe this was healing me on a physical level. Who knows? You can, a lot of people I've heard on iboga, they can have chronic disease like cancers or chronic fatigue or Lyme's disease, all this kind of stuff. And iboga is the best medicine for them to cure this disease because it heals you on a cellular level. It feels like it goes into your body on a very, very deep level, and it can cure illnesses, disease, heroin addiction, this kind of serious hardcore stuff,
Okay, because I have someone in my family who's having a lot of drug issues for many years, and I was considering iboga, because that's what I kind of heard is the right medicine. But also this person is very weak, has all sorts of issues with mental health and physical health. So, and I heard the experience is so profound, it can take like 30 something hours. And when I've heard about iboga first time, I was watching actually a documentary where people who had some heroin addictions claimed to got healed, and I became interested. So I reached out to the retreat place, I think it was in Thailand, that I saw in a documentary. And then I found out that they shut it down because someone died there. And, this is like the kind of thing I'm hearing, that it can be way too strong. And I'm here, for someone I'm thinking about, if they're quite weak, I'm not sure if they can handle that.
So I'll give you a good solution. There's obviously iboga is very powerful, and I think there's many people who want to open iboga retreats, but they don't because of this same thing. Because they're scared of it. Because maybe, I think in the past there was there's people in Costa Rica that had retreats as well, and somebody died. Maybe it's not their fault. Maybe the person was just too weak. But you need to take great care from a medical side. You need to have people really understand who are they giving their medicine to. So you need to have very rigorous, very serious health checks, checking what medication are they on, how strong is their heart, what is their blood level, blood type, all this stuff, blood pressure. You need to really have somebody check this, I think, before you prescribe iboga. Because it's so powerful. Like you say, the risk of death is there. So the retreat I went to in Costa Rica is called Costa Rica Yoga Spa. There's a man who runs a retreat called Darren McBratney, and I met him, and we did a documentary at that retreat as well. It's still to be edited, but we have the footage. And this guy really seems to hit the nail on the head, because he himself had really serious illness, disease, and many people died from the same disease, and hospitals couldn't cure him. And he discovered iboga, and it cured him. And so he decided to make this retreat, but he made it in a very good way. So what he did was, he hired the best medical intuitives in the world. So what he did was, he had his own disease, and he basically emailed 100 medical psychics or intuitives and said to them, give me a reading. Like, read me, and he picked the 10 best, like the ones that gave the most accurate reading, remote reading. He just sent a photo, answered a few questions, and that's based on the photo, based on the conversation, they read him. So he chose these intuitive. So for example, when I went to do iboga, before I went there, he gave me a full questionnaire, maybe 30 questions to fill out, paragraphs and everything to tick boxes, and medical health history, asthma, do you have any heart problems, do you have any prescription drugs, all this stuff. And also he said to me, you have to send a photograph to this medical intuitive as well. So I send a photograph, and the medical intuitive sends me back like a 3-4 page report full report. This is what I see. She said to me, you suffer from like you're exhausted, like physical exhaustion, you know, and mental exhaustion, maybe from all the years of partying or whatever, and my mind, and I'm very fast and I never relax. I don't meditate, so I was very exhausted. So she gave me all this information that was quite true, and she said to me, this is the dosage of iboga that you should have. So some people, they will be prescribed a very small dosage. Some people will be a big dosage, just depending on their medical reading. So I think this might be a good solution for your family member, is to think about this potential, because they pay a lot of attention to your health, to your mental state, to your body, and many times they will say no to somebody if they feel like, because this is the problem, some retreats just want the money, you know, and they will accept everybody. So you need to, if a retreat's just saying yes to you without asking you lots of questions, don't go. Because they need to be asking you lots of questions. They need to be making sure you're healthy, you're not got heart problems, you're not doing prescription drugs, you're not got, you know, antidepressants. All these questions they need to ask you, and it's a big red flag if they don't ask you these questions for iboga, you know. So like, this is a good solution for him, but this is something for everyone watching. If they want to do iboga, make sure the retreat is asking you these questions, because if they're not, then you need to be careful.
Okay, yeah, I see. So something else I wanted to talk to you about, you know, what's your view about, are we going through some kind of shift in consciousness, some awakening? You know, I've had Daniel Pinchbeck on my show recently, and he was talking about like how so many different cultures predicted this time in history. That we're gonna go through some kind of shift in consciousness, and it can, you know, no one fully understands how it's gonna look like, when it's gonna happen, if it's happening now or not. But it's gonna be something big, or it's already maybe happening, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? We're definitely going through some kind of major changes on the planet, and if we continue the way we are, we might, you know, destroy the civilization, right? So what do you think? Are we going through some kind of shift? What's your feeling like? What's your knowledge on this subject?
Sure. I mean, if you remember when I first started Educate, Inspire, Change, they were talking about the end of the world with the Mayan calendar. Do you remember this? 2012, it was going to be the end of the world, but maybe it was the end of a cycle. Maybe it was just the start of a new cycle, you know, on a consciousness level. And I really feel that maybe that's accurate, because only since then did pages like mine and yours become popular. Because people's consciousness started to shift. People started to care more about world affairs, the truth about politics, the truth about health. Before, if we started those pages 20 years ago, maybe nobody would have cared. They're too busy watching movies and watching the news and drinking Kool-Aid and nothing else. They don't care. But now, all of a sudden, everybody's caring. And I think it's because the internet is connecting people at a very exponential rate. We're taking in information like never before. Every day, people are reading articles, watching videos, like we're consuming so much information, yeah? And because of this information, we're connecting to people at a much higher rate than ever before. So it's almost like, it reminds me of like a ceremony when I'm doing ayahuasca, yeah? Like during the ayahuasca ceremony, you feel so connected, and you have to purge all this stuff. You come face to face with reality, yeah? And you need to purge. It feels like the whole planet is collectively raising its consciousness, because we're all becoming more aware, we're all becoming more mindful, we're all learning off each other, and we're now realizing, shit, there's so much wrong with the world, and now slowly we're purging. And purging can come in many forms: exposing pedophiles, exposing corrupt politicians, exposing all these people all around the world. People have the courage now to speak up. People have the courage to stand against these big billionaires or corrupt companies or corrupt politicians for the first time in history, you know, or recent history. So I think the world is purging right now, and I think it's probably going to get much worse before it gets better. I can feel this happening, you know. They're going to have more control, want to have more control over us. They want to suppress us. They want to, like, all these people on the internet are being suppressed. David Icke is being shut down. You know, Brian Rose was shut down on YouTube and Facebook. All these people wanted to talk about the truth. Many pages like similar to ours were shut down because they were maybe talking too much about topics that people didn't want to hear, you know. So I think there's a lot of censorship going on just now, but I think they can't win, you know, because the people are so so connected now that the message is already out there. You can't destroy. You can maybe kill people physically, but you can't kill an idea. So once we create this idea, it will pass on for generations and around people until eventually it becomes a fruition. So there's ideas about how the world should be. There's systems that should be in place, like food systems. The whole world doesn't need to be, like we can feed the whole planet, for example. There can be free energy everywhere, for example. There can be like no need for war. There can be like healthcare readily to everyone available. There's these systems and ideas that people realize should be true, but they're not because of one thing, because of profit and money. Because right now, health, pharmaceuticals, prison are all led by profit. So while we are prioritizing profit as a number one thing, the world's going to be like this. But we're slowly changing the priorities. Now some countries around the world, if you look at some of the countries, funnily enough, who have female leaders, like Scotland, like New Zealand, like I think, some countries in the world, am I right? Yeah, even Iceland, yeah. These leaders are now prioritizing health and state of mind over profit. So this is the first seeds of change coming, and if everyone can do this, then we will see a big shift. And I'm hoping that this will happen. And I think it will be a matter of time. We might need to see some revolutions. We might need to see some real friction and real. Maybe some revolution on the street, but the revolution will not be televised as well. So like there's many people just now even are taking to the streets around the world. I think it happened in Germany with the COVID. There was maybe 1 million people on the street protesting against wearing these masks, but nobody knew because it wasn't on mainstream media. We had to really watch obscure YouTube channels to find out the truth. So unfortunately, the truth isn't being televised, We need to really research and dig deep for ourselves to see what's happening. But I'm quite confident that we will get there. It will just take quite a lot of time and a lot of resistance,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think internet is kind of helps to facilitate this shift because it created this layer of transparency. And, we can share information. We can quickly see what's happening, corruption, all these kind of things can be revealed. And I even heard someone says that actually the meaning of the word apocalypse is to reveal. And this is like the time of revelation, it's like the truth is coming out. If you think about like the world 30 years ago or 40 years ago, like, it was so easy to manipulate people's perception through media. Now, the police officer is abusing their power, and the next day everyone knows about it. The whole world knows about it because everyone has a camera in their pocket and they can film it quickly and upload it to the internet. So, there is this kind of, it's almost like the internet allows for, think about it, you have a room full of dust, like it's dirty, but suddenly someone turned on the light and you can start to see the dust, so this is almost like what's going on. And obviously the old systems will crumble, or they probably want to preserve themselves, obviously, but people are kind of starting to see through. So yeah, I also think it's going to be maybe painful process, but
yeah. One thing I remember experiencing when I was doing plant medicine was like I got the urge or the feeling to leave the city, So like I was, obviously when you do plant medicine, you feel more in touch with nature and you want to be in an environment that's more healthier, And I really felt compelled to pack up and leave, and I'm in the process of doing that. But this is something that's quite important. I think that came to me is the cities where people gather, like New York, London, all these big, huge places. These are the places where are going to get worse before they get better. There's going to be more control, more corruption, more suicide, more drugs, more other stuff. So I felt like one of my messages was to tell people, if you can, try to live more sustainably and try to live more in tune with nature and try to get away, if you can, from these places where there's going to be much more control and manipulation taking place, It's obviously not possible for everybody. It's very difficult, but it's something to think about. Even just being in nature more, spending more time in the park, maybe live in a city, but be more in the park and spend more time with nature and thinking about these things. Try to think about how to live sustainably and how to go off the grid a little bit, because I really think that humanity wasn't designed to live the way we live. You're not meant to cram 10 million people into a confined space or, it's not the way we're meant to live. You know, it just breeds disease and breeds mental illness and corruption and all this stuff. You know, we're meant to live in small, sustainable communities where we can all rely on each other. Like a good example, I've been speaking to people in Costa Rica who have these communities. You know, and one guy says to me, like on the average street, you know, they have like 10 houses, they have 10 lawnmowers, they have 10 cars, they have 10 ladders, they have 10 of everything. But I guarantee you they only use the lawnmower like 10 days a year, or the ladder once a year. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole street could easily survive on one ladder and one lawnmower, you know? But the problem is we live separated. We don't see how we're connected. We see how we're separated, so we all have to have our own things. So my concept for the future is I really want to live in a community where we can put our resources together and create a better life for all of us together. Do you know what I mean? And you see this in some cultures, like some families, like Jewish families, some Asian families, they really put their income together. And people say they have big houses, big cars, but it's because the whole family lives together. You know what I mean? And they all live, they eat well, they have a good life, they're all supported, and they have, you know, no worries, no stresses of bills. But modern society wants you to separate. And it's funny because the other day I heard someone talk about this in China. You know how in China they are trying to manage the population and they want every family to have only one child? Somebody was saying to me, this is not just for population control, it's also for, they want to break the family system. Because once you only have one son, or one daughter, you're not having the family home, and you're losing tradition, and people are not. And then after one generation, that person is much easier to control because they don't have brothers or sisters or family to support them. They're only one human. Do you know what I mean? And their mother or father will die; they'll be alone, and they need to rely on the government. So they're almost trying to break down the family system and the feeling of community and, like, you know, this connectedness. So it's very important that we make people aware of this, like, because I think it's happening all around the world. Population control, the world's overpopulated, we need to manage. This is not true. I think this is a myth. There is more than enough resources to feed everybody. There's more than enough land to look after everybody, as long as we can learn to manage it and learn to trust people in their own small communities. At the moment, they want to control everyone from the top down, and this is very hard to do with 7 billion people. But it would be very easy to do if you gave people control and give people more independence over their own, you know, feed themselves. Right now, you can't go to the park and give people food because you need a permit, you need a license. Right now, you can't collect rainwater in America because it's against the law, because I don't know why, it's just crazy. There's so many laws that are just weird, you know. And I think I feel passionate about this, trying to resist against this separation. Another thing plant medicine done for me was it made me feel really connected. So before, like me and you, we come from different backgrounds completely, yeah? We also have different colour skin. We speak different. And in the past, this would make us feel separated from each other. But now I see every human, I just see them as another version of me. Like, you could be me, I could be you. If I was born with your family, with your house, in your country, I would become you. And if you were born in my environment, you would become me. We just have we're shaped by our own experience, by our own environment. But we're all made of the same thing, just the same atoms, the same energy. So I feel like a sense of connectedness to everybody now, and I think this is something that's important. When we can start walking down the street and feeling connected to everybody instead of separated from everybody, that's another big thing. We will then change our perception, and the world becomes a much more friendlier and easier place to live.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you know, I grew up in Poland and initially in Catholic family, but fortunately I was a critical thinker and I managed to deprogram myself. And I look at it, you know, a lot of people who kind of put their identity where, like, let's say based on nationality or color of skin or religion. To me, it's kind of it becomes really silly these days, because we're kind of one human race. We face the same problems, you know. We're destroying the planet, you know, and all these things are just labels. It's like, you know, I'm wearing blue t-shirts, you're wearing red t-shirts, whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter really. And even if you actually look at the history of every nation, it's a mixture of everything, you know. No one is like pure, you know, type or whatever. There's been a mixture of cultures, mixture of you know, ancestors, everything. So it's kind of like, I think people just tend to do it because it makes them feel better if they are belonging to some group, you know. But that's kind of like, to me, it's also a little bit outdated way of thinking. And you mentioned something about censorship earlier, and this is something I wanted to ask you about as well. We're seeing the censorship on the internet is getting crazy now. We remember like the times where you could publish anything you wanted and no one would say anything. But now, kind of like these big corporations took over, and everyone is using them, and then there is no accountability. They can do anything they want. They can block anyone they want. They have this kind of shield around them, legal, that no one can really do anything. So it's becoming really annoying when you want to report anything a little bit controversial, and the truth is not always black and white. So and then you're being censored, and you spent years on building this following. It's been so difficult to do, and you every single day you have to be worrying about not being censored or anything like that. What do you think about this whole situation, and what do you think are the solutions to this problem?
Yeah, it's almost like in the olden days they used to go to like churches or libraries and burn the books. They would burn the books to get rid of a history. It's kind of like this. They're almost doing like a digital book burning. They're erasing all our content, all our information that might have some serious truths in there. And I think it's a really a travesty. It's really shocking, and the fact that they can get away with it just now is really terrible, because at the moment there's no one to, as you say, hold them accountable. At the moment, like Facebook, Google, Apple, all these big, huge companies, like, they're at the top, and there's nobody holds them accountable. Even sometimes when the government in America like does do a hearing for Mark Zuckerberg, he just talks, and then it goes out, they fine him 40 million. They say, okay, it's pocket change, and he walks away and makes it. It doesn't impact anything. Even all these hearings, a waste of time. I think the only way to defeat this system is to build new systems. So what I'm realizing is, what's the word they say? Energy goes where energy flows. Yeah. So we can focus all our energy on what I'm trying to do with my platform, like you're doing as well. We're creating podcasts. We're trying to become less reliant on these platforms. We want to build our own core following, our own newsletter, our own, do you know what I mean? Because we don't want to rely on these big platforms. And I think slowly, this is the way forward. A good example for me is the Joe Rogan podcast. You know what I mean? So he's a massive podcast, and he just talks about whatever he wants to. I don't think there's much censorship goes on with his conversations. He talks to politicians, both left wing, right wing, psychedelics, everybody. And he got such a big audience, and he now got a 100 million deal with Spotify. So I think the key moving forward is to create your own brand, create your own systems. Don't rely so much. The mistake we made with hindsight was putting all our eggs in one basket, relying on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube to support us, when they're not going to support us now. We have to realize that, and they're only supporting entertainers or musicians or brands or celebrities. They don't want us who are people who are challenging the media, challenging Fox News, challenging CNN, challenging BBC, challenging the American government. They don't want to hear this on their platforms. So it's a hard time, but I think eventually we will just make our own way. Like, I was talking to a guy, you know him as well. I think you did a podcast with Bill Ottman of Minds, So he's a good example. He created this platform, Minds, of his own back, and it's a freedom of speech platform. There's no censorship there. You can post whatever you like. So I'm hoping in time, as time evolves, more and more people will join platform like that, or create their own platforms and give people like me and you a platform where we can really share our messages of truth. And that's the thing is, I think we need to just focus our attention on new systems, and and focus more on solutions instead of on the problem. So the problems are censorship, the problems are Facebook and Google and YouTube, but the solution isn't there. The solution is somewhere else. So I think for me and you, it's sad to say, but we need to start paying attention to other forms of communication, other ways to build our brand and share our message.
Yeah, and I think it's also harder to silence person rather than a brand, because if you have a brand and you don't know who is behind the brand, people follow people. So it's like if the person is being hurt by censorship, I think that people stand out in their to protect them, like with Brian Rose, who was censored on YouTube, and then he has such a strong following that people actually donated a lot of money to help him to build his own unique independent platform. So I think that kind of shows the power as well. um,
Definitely.
and I think this is also the way to move forward. That's one of the reasons as well why I'm kind of putting myself out there as
Yeah.
well more these days.
Yeah.
I also wanted to know, do you have any personal practices, like some rituals, personal development tips
Yeah.
that you apply on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Sure. So like I find myself much more focusing on investing time and energy into myself, into personal growth. So I've been looking outwards for the last 6 months for advice, help. Like I've been speaking to life coaches, healers and all these kind of people that can give me support. And even some things I've been doing naturally myself, I'll start with them first. So like I like to practice gratitude, and I try to do as much as I can. I like to just be grateful. So quite often, especially with my children, putting them to bed or waking up in the morning with them, you can't help but feel grateful for them. But in the same moment, I try to do a thing where I'm practicing gratitude for them, and in the same, because in the same ritual, if you like, I also add in my health, my family, my business, my my all this stuff. So it's like a guy taught me this. The guy who owns Rhythmy, Jerry, actually taught me this because he's a very good manifester. He's very good at manifesting money, business, and he says to me, he used to do this. He used to think about the thing he was most grateful for, and it would make him cry. And in the same sentence, he would also talk about my abundance, my business, my wealth, my health, my family, my friends, everything. So it'd all be in that same. It's almost like a very pure prayer, and you're also throwing in all this extra stuff, and it feels like it becomes real. Because when I'm being grateful for my children, and I'm also being grateful for my business, and I'm also being grateful for my wealth, it's like it's putting that energy into all of it, So it's giving a lot of importance to those things, because sometimes we can say, "I wish I was rich," but you don't really mean it. But I really do believe that I want to be successful. I really do believe in my platform. I really do believe that I want to be successful because my greater purpose is worth it. You know what I mean? So I feel that inside on a deep core level. So I try to practice this gratitude every day, and I think it really does make a big difference, because especially in the morning, if you can start with this vibration, this frequency, the rest of the day just flows much more better. Because maybe you had a bad dream, maybe you had a bad day the day before. If you can start your morning with this, it just gives you a good head start. So that's one practice that I like to do. And even when we eat dinner with my kids, obviously people who are religious do this, they pray, but we always say thank you for our food. We don't know if it's a God, or we say thank you to the universe, thank you to God, thank you to mum for cooking the food, thank you to the animals or whatever is involved in the making the food. We just say, so even this act of this makes the act of eating dinner much nicer and better, and for the children to see that as well, so being grateful, also spending time in nature is a very, very, the most best one for me, and the simplest one as well. Because often I find it hard to find the motivation sometimes to maybe sit and meditate, or to go and do yoga, or all these things that require a bit more discipline and a bit more time, and you need to have no distractions. But the one thing I can do anytime is I can walk outside to the garden, or I can sit quietly next to a tree, or I can walk to a park, So this is the best thing for me that I use to keep in touch with this vibration, this frequency. Just if I want to get away, just be alone and be with nature, and see how you feel. Like often people don't do this. They don't just sit next to a tree for half an hour, and see how you feel, or even take your feet and put them into the sand or the grass or the nature, because this is another form of feeling connected, and it does really, really help. And even science backs this up as well. There's many scientific reviews about the feelings of putting your feet on earth. It's called grounding or earthing. It's another powerful tool. So those are three ones. There's many more: meditation, yoga, diet, nutrition, so many other things I could talk about, but those three are the big ones for me.
Yeah, I keep hearing from people about gratitude, how important it is. And I grew up, it's almost like genetic disease or whatever. Everyone around me is always unhappy and wants more, and this is like a pattern in my family. And I've been noticing how I always feel like this is not perfect, this is not enough. And it's almost like, if you think about it, if you actually are grateful, you focus your attention on something that you want to have as well, because you already have it, so you can get more of it if you put attention to it, right? So it's, even if you believe in the
Exactly.
law of attraction, if you on the other hand would focus on lack of something, I want to be rich or whatever, but I'm not, it's hard to make it work, right? If it's almost like you need to put attention on something to then, because you you keep attracting more of it, right? So that's why gratitude is so important as well. I feel like I need to start working on it more, because I'm always keep drifting towards my patterns, which are just like, this is not enough, it's like
a good thing that might help you a little bit is, as well as gratitude, I also feel like the sense of purpose. So like, for example, this podcast, imagine it only has 10 views, but imagine if one of those views, the person really gets profoundly changed, wants to do ayahuasca or wants to heal, or then to me, I feel very proud, So it's just having that, like obviously we have rather large platforms, but like it's like we if we could see the effect we had on other people, I think we would be really grateful every day. But we can't maybe visualize it because we don't see the end results. But if you see one person, one 15-year-old boy watching a video or listening to a podcast, and that 15-year-old boy is changed for life because something you said, think about how good you would feel. So this feeling of not enough, lack, just the ripples effect we have, just try to me, I feel this is what keeps me going, because sometimes I have very low, like you see our figures on Facebook, on YouTube, they're very low compared to the usual, and it can be very demoralizing, demotivating, like we're not reaching as many people, we're not making enough money, we're not being successful, but still we're making an impact. And I think just focus on what we are doing good, and I think, like you say, we will attract more, But I'm the same as you, brother. It's very easy to focus on lack, or very easy to focus on what you don't have, and you forget what you do have. I mean, even being alive is we won the lottery just to be alive. Like 400 trillion to 1 is a chance just to be born. Like we should just wake up grateful every day anyway. It doesn't, even if you had no money, no job, no nothing, you should be grateful anyway. But human nature, we're not wired for this. We're always wired to want more, So like for me, like having a sense of purpose, it helps me to be grateful, to know why I'm here, what I'm doing is for a greater cause. This to me, it's almost like being in service to mankind, This helps me to be grateful, because it doesn't become about me anymore. It becomes about everyone else. When it's about me, I could always have more money, I could always be healthier, I could always have a six-pack, I could always look better, but with other people, it makes me feel less like focusing on negative and more, okay, I'm helping people, I'm providing truth, I'm inspiring, I'm educating. This it helps me to be more grateful more often.
Yeah, I think this sense of purpose is really important, because I mean, we both been around for many years, and I've also spent years of working for free, building things from scratch, working weekends just to pay my bills and all these kind of things. It's been really challenging period. It's always challenging, you have these periods when things start working out, and then you have another few months when everything is crashing, and people don't understand how much energy it goes into building these brands and platforms. And without that sense of purpose, you'll probably not be able to keep going, because for me, I'm just feeling like I'm on a mission. I reach like 100 million people over the years, and I meet people somewhere, or I just add them on Facebook, whatever. I see they're sharing our stuff, some random people all around the world. And, it's an evidence for me that, I'm having an impact and I'm helping so many people. And that's like the main motivating factor. It's not money, it's not other things. Money is needed because you cannot do anything without the money. But, it's more about just like having an impact and making people think and making them to see the bigger picture. So it's really like, without it, you cannot keep going, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. It's this concept of money. Like, it's been a very testing period for me, because like just before the virus hit, I decided to invest a lot of money in creating new projects. Like I'm filming some documentaries, paying for editors and camera crews, and traveling and flights and accommodation. And I'm investing in the podcast, and like I've hired a team to create videos, and all this money went out. And all of a sudden, our money stopped. Like, so we were making much less money from Facebook, from YouTube, everywhere. And it was really testing for me, because my instinct was saying to me, stop putting out money. But I said to myself, look, I need to almost like it's almost like a test, you know, like how much do you care about these projects? How much do you want to do the ayahuasca documentary? How much do you want to do the podcast? How much do you believe in yourself? So I said, okay, I'm going to keep paying, and I hope one day it turns around. And I'm still waiting for it to turn around, but it's just having this self-belief that I think this is the difference between successful people and non-successful people is when you have nothing going for you, when you're at rock bottom, what choice do you make? Do you give up and go home, or do you keep fighting? And only the people that keep fighting, only the people that have that extreme self-belief keep going, that one day will be successful. Maybe we'll fail, maybe our business will crash, but I guarantee you we won't give up. I guarantee you we'll start again something else, or we do something else, you know what I mean? And eventually we will be successful because this is our nature. And I have this comfort in the back of my mind that, and I can see it in you as well, obviously you've created this platform, we have similar passions, similar goals, and people like us, we just don't give up, and we won't give up, and it's a good feeling, and maybe that's why we are where we are, because people in this position need to have that stubborn nature not to give up and to be really passionate. We all have different roles to do in this world, you know. Some people are healers, some people are leaders, some people are teachers, whatever we're here to do, you know. And people like us, we choose to be shedding light on truth and to spread information and knowledge, and we're light workers in a way. But people like us, we can't be easily put off. We need to be very stubborn and very like passionate about what we do. So even despite all the negative, no money and all this stuff, I'm pushing forward, you know. And even that's the key, I think. Is there's some famous celebrities that follow this, like the law of attraction, like I hear about people like Conor McGregor, even Muhammad Ali did it, and Jim Carrey, some actors. They say when they had nothing, like they had no money, they had no hope, they were doing nothing, they were still in their mind visualizing themselves at the top. So Muhammad Ali, when he was 14 years old, he was saying, I'm the world champion. I'm the champion of the world at 14 years old. Conor McGregor was driving in his girlfriend's car, going to become a plumber. And he says, in my mind, I'm driving a Bentley and I'm the champion of the world. So in their mind, doesn't matter where they are, how low, they have no money, they have no career, they have no prospect. In their mind, they're number one in the world. So right now, this podcast might be number 200 or number 1,000 in the world, but if you can visualize, I'm going to be number one, I'm going to beat Joe Rogan to become number one. Like if you can visualize this now and really believe it, then I will bet any money you will get there one day, you know. But just having this self-belief and this ability to overcome any obstacles and not let anything stop you, that will help you to get there.
Yeah, I think it's important to, you know, have goals and try to reach top goals. But sometimes I'm also like, I used to be very competitive and I used to have like, you know, I want to be the best. And then, you know, sometimes it takes over too much and, you know, you just become obsessed and it kind of can destroy other things. So I'm not, you know, I became a little bit more distant to like trying to do something to be the best or whatever. More what's like, I'm also opening up to what flows, you know, like I'm kind of getting into synchronicities and seeing opportunities coming, and then like, you know, instead of being fixated on a goal numbers that I had maybe like a year ago, whatever, I'm just watching what's unfolding, and then like if this is some path that makes sense, I'm going this direction. What do you think about
you said something really good there that made me backtrack a little bit. So I'm glad you said that, because when I said be number one, like you're right, you shouldn't aim for number one. What you should aim is to be the best you can be. Yeah. So like, cause you're correct. Like when you focus on the numbers, like I follow a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk as well, who's quite a inspirational entrepreneurial figure in business. And he says, people are always saying to him, I don't have 1 million fans. I want to get 1,000 fans. I want to get how much, you know, and he goes, you're already in the wrong place. Don't focus on that. Focus on you doing the best you can, putting out the best content, and then the numbers will feed you back. So like you're correct. I have goals. I want to be the best I can be at everything. And if it's number 10, if it's number 20, if it's number 1, it doesn't matter as long as I'm doing the best I can. So I think that's quite right. So thank you for saying that, because you made me backtrack a little. I think that's, and I don't want listeners to get me the wrong way. It's good to have goals. It's good to have ambitions, but the main focus should be on being the best version of yourself and not comparing yourself to others, because we're all at different stages in our life as well. You know, there's many circumstances of people that, you know, like famous actors like Al Pacino. I think nobody knew him until he was 30 30 or 40 years old. His first big job came when he was really old, you know? And like I'm younger than him. Do you know what I mean? And other people become billionaires at 21, like Mark Zuckerberg. Other people become, you know, at 70, Donald Trump became president at whatever age he is, 70 or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, think of how old they are, you know? So we're all at different stages in our life, we're all different paths. And this is why it's a big mistake to compare yourself to others. Do you know what I mean? No one's ahead, no one's behind. We're all just on our own journey, on our own path. And I think this is an important thing to say to people, because being competitive is good to a level. But don't let it, like you said, you can become obsessed with the numbers, obsessed with how much money or what rank am I. Just be obsessed with your content. And are you doing the best thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to, you know, be competitive and all these things. If you are on a business, you know, what we do is a business eventually. But because without that drive, without pushing, you cannot accomplish anything. It's like a team in a football, you know, they got to be working together, and they got to be a leader that keeps an eye on everything so they can succeed. So it's like everything, you know,
Exactly.
got to be some level of organization and drive, but also, as we said, without getting too fixated on everything, you know, status, numbers, whatever.
Exactly.
I also wanted to ask you, do you have any movies or maybe documentaries or maybe books or anything that kind of really impacted you, or, you know, something you can recommend, like your favorites?
Sure. Okay, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of there's a documentary about plant medicine called The Reality of Truth, which I planted a few seeds in my head about my own medicine journey. I interviewed the director of this movie as well, so he's a really interesting guy. The Reality of Truth, that's called. Obviously, The Law of Attraction is a book, and The Secret was a famous one that many people use. The Secret is a bit maybe mainstream, but at the time it had a big impact on me. But with hindsight, I maybe look to go more deeper now, but it still woke me up in many ways to the law of attraction, to the art of manifestation and self-belief. So the Secret is still an important book to me. And to be honest with you, like I just spent a lot of time listening to people like Alan Watts and Terence McKenna. So philosophers, humanitarians, and these people have, I mean, it's crazy with Terence McKenna. If you look online on YouTube, it's like I listen to him every night, or almost, and every night I find something new. There's like endless hours and hours, must be thousands of hours of him talking over, and he was you know, doing this in the 80s and 90s when there wasn't much media, no YouTube and all this, and he was making so much. It's like a gift. It's almost like he's living on through his you know, his voice through YouTube now. It's crazy. But like, so people like that, I would listen to lots of, you know, shorter videos and lectures that they give. Alan Watts has a philosophy on Buddhism, on being Zen, and he's a great guy and a very calming influence. And I just love these people, just listening to their stories, listening to their wisdom. And even like podcasts, like the Joe Rogan podcast for me was a big influence, because he had lots of really interesting conversations. And for the first time, I heard someone, you know, talk about things that no one else spoke about. So he was having conversations about aliens, about DMT, about Area 51, about conspiracy, about corruption, and nobody else was having these conversations on mainstream media. So that was a guy that really woke me up, and a lot of my podcast is inspired by him and the kind of conversations he has. And I would say, like, if anyone's listened to this, definitely go back, because he's got, you know, thousands of episodes or hundreds of episodes going back 10 years, and some of the early ones with like Graham Hancock and really interesting people who are really fast. Graham Hancock's another interesting guy. Like, his books and his documentaries and even short videos are really interesting. He talks about a lot to do with ancient civilization, and he really does like a historian, an archaeologist, and he has a very unique point of view on where humans came from and how we originated and what influences we have. And it's very fascinating to me to think that even hundreds of thousands of years ago there was really advanced civilizations here that we seem to have forgotten about. And I think that's a really key thing that would unlock a lot about what we don't know about ourselves today. It feels like we are like a species with amnesia. You know, we're like maybe being around for millions of years, but we've forgotten how advanced we used to be and how much spiritual knowledge we used to have. And it seems to have been wiped out by history or somehow. And we've almost like forgotten. We just wake up, we just think, okay, I'm a human, I'll get a job, I'll get married, and then I die. And this is not why we're here to do more. When you think about it, like, take a look at where you are. Like, you're on a bloody rock in the middle of space with a great ball of like gas providing you with unlimited energy, surrounded by other balls of energy that are shining in the sky. It's like that alone is crazy. Like, stop, you're on a rock in space, you're on a spaceship, organic spaceship, you know, and you're in this like a skeleton covered with meat that creates sound from its mouth. Like, it's really crazy when you think about it for a second, who we are and what we're doing. But people are born and they just get brainwashed instantly. This is who you are. This is your name is Mike, my name is Kash. You are Catholic, I am Muslim. You're going to get married, you're going to get a job, you're going to make money, then you're going to die, and that's the end of story. This is not true, you know. So we need to find out. I think the deeper we look into history, maybe we'll start to understand ourselves better and what we're capable of. I really think that the human's mind and body are capable of great feats. Like, we hear about things like telekinesis and, you know, psychic abilities and ability to manifest things with your mind and power and whatever it might be, meditation, how you can travel through time, all this stuff. I really think humans are capable of great feats, but we just have forgotten. And this is what I think the psychedelics do as well. Is I think the psychedelics are almost here to remind us. So these plants are planted here for a reason somehow. I don't know how they got here, how we discovered them, but it's almost like there's deep knowledge in them that we can unlock. And I think maybe there's something there. There's a key there that once we understand psychedelics and also the dream state, psychedelics unlock a dream state as well. So understanding your dreams better. I've heard people talk about this type of ayahuasca called yahe, and it makes, this guy said to me he's been doing yahe for 20 years, yeah, and he does, I can't remember his name, but I'll send it to you afterwards. He says he's been doing it for 20 years, and he goes, after 20 years of doing this medicine, he goes, now he has those visions in his dreams. So he doesn't need to drink it anymore. He just goes to sleep and he unlocks. And he goes, and then when he dreams, he can go into like the movie Inception. He goes, in the dream, I can go deeper and deeper and deeper into another dream. And he discovered ways to do it. He goes, in the dream, I fall asleep in my dream and I wake up in another dream. And he's found ways to navigate deeper. And he goes, and sometimes it can feel like I'm away for days. And I come back exhausted. I wake up exhausted. And he goes, this is something I'm unlocking, a dream realm. And this stuff fascinates me. You know, like maybe we can only live for 90 years, yes, or 80 years, but maybe there's something we can unlock in our mind where in our dream state, in a psychedelic state, we can maybe travel for years somewhere else and maybe we can live different lives or go to different realities. There's so much we don't know about time, about reality, we don't know anything. We really don't. And it's exciting and because there's so much knowledge out there that's left to be discovered, you know, so there's something else to like ponder, I suppose, you know, like to think about.
I definitely think that we have enormous potential, hidden potential. You know, I've been experimenting with lots of things over the years. You know, I've been reading a lot of spiritual books and trying all sorts of practices, out of body experiences, healing, you know, getting getting like predictive dreams and things like that, you know, and I kind of, so I could see how much we can do. And this is just like, you know, one of many things. And I'm constantly also discovering things like recently I got into Wim Hof's breathing and I started looking more and more into Wim Hof, and it's just really fascinating how you have a guy who is over 60 and he can do, you know, such insane things like, I don't know, climbing mountains, you know, the tallest mountains are swimming under the ice for like 70 meters. And the guy's, you know, he is more fit than athletes in prime age, you know, like being 20 or 30. So that just shows you what's possible, you know. I was reading about this guy who is like some Turkish yoga master. He's over 90. He actually had fractured his spine like 40 years earlier, and he managed to heal himself or something. And now he's in his 90s, and he can have sex several times a day. So that's like, these kind of guys are my inspiration, you know.
yeah Definitely him. Yeah, that's interesting.
So what's on your mind for the next year? Like, what's your project? Or I know you're working on a movie, right? Documentary series.
Yeah, Yeah, so I have two projects. One is called Pantera, which is a documentary series. This is just born organically from my experiences with ayahuasca. I felt the need to film my journey. Then it got bigger and bigger, and I started to film every retreat. And I thought to myself, instead of one documentary, this could be 5 documentaries, you know? So I thought I need to maybe make this a series, and maybe I can make it an ongoing thing. So in the future, I've filmed 3 episodes so far, filmed. Only one is ready to be released. And I'm hoping in the future to maybe visit many different retreats and do this as a business model, maybe filming documentaries and promoting these medicines and these locations, and obviously trying to do the work myself and showing people the transformation that I'm experiencing, so people can understand better, like, what does iboga do to this guy, what does ayahuasca do to him, and what does these different medicines do, and how does he feel, how does he react. And I want to just to help to educate people. So I'm working on this documentary. There's a website called pantera.film where I'm hosting the trailer just now, so anyone wants to watch, they can go there, they can leave their email, and they can register to watch. The other one is called Awakening the Soul. And there's a website called awakeningthesoulfilm.com, and this is another documentary, which is a standalone documentary. It's just a deep dive into ayahuasca and the origins of ayahuasca and the effects on it, the science behind ayahuasca, and a little bit of our journey and rhythmia that me and my friend Samuel Austin, who owns a page called Live, Learn, Evolve, we created this documentary together. He's the director and editor of this documentary. It's close to finishing as well, so I'm looking forward to being able to release these and just to seeing what happens. We're speaking to like platforms like Gaia to see if maybe we can post the documentary there. So my podcast is keeping me busy. These documentaries are keeping me busy. On a personal level, I'm planning on moving to Costa Rica very soon, and I'm hoping to work closely with Rhythmia there. And I'm also going to be managing my own business from there. So my podcast, hopefully I'll be able to interview different guests every week, maybe more related to plant medicine, because I want to interview people who do ayahuasca, and so they can share their stories with everybody and give people a deeper understanding. This is my path. When I go there, I want to become more sustainable, live more in tune with nature, and maybe long-term stay there, maybe become part of a community or grow my own community, and just to see where the universe takes me. I feel like I'm just following my path, and I'm trusting in the universe. I'm sacrificing a lot of my home comforts, like all my family and friends and cars and all the stuff I'm used to here in the UK, and I'm really just taking a risk, or not a risk, but I'm just taking a leap of faith by going to Costa Rica and hopefully changing my life, changing my kids' life, and becoming happier and healthier.
Yeah, no, sounds like a big plans. Yeah, hopefully it's going to materialize in this crazy period,
Thank you.
with COVID and travel.
Yeah, I hope so.
Getting a little bit crazy.
I know.
Is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we're going to wrap up?
I'm quite happy. I think we've covered a lot. Obviously, if anybody wants to find me, I run my platforms, Educate, Inspire, Change. They can just search for that on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Podcast is on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. It would mean a lot if people would follow, support, download, review. That's the best way you can support us. And obviously the same for you, Mike. Like, the best way people can support us is just by following and sharing and commenting as much as they can. So to keep us growing, keep us going. So thank you very much for hosting this podcast. And thank you as well for your friendship over the years. And let's maybe after this conversation, let's retouch base and see how we can maybe collaborate more for, because it's not easy time for anybody. So whatever we can do for each other, let's do for each other, you know?
Thank you. And I also appreciate our friendship. And thanks for checking out this True Fear podcast episode. Until next time.